Hello and welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Vladimir Solohoub. Join me now to discuss the impact of the high-profile resignation of Ukraine's economy minister on the political situation in Ukraine is political analyst, Deputy Director General and Director for Political and Legal Programs of Razumkov think tank, Mr. Yuriy Yakymenko. Mr. Yakymenko, welcome back to Viewpoint.
Hello.
Mr. Yakymenko, the high-profile resignation of Ukraine's economy minister and his accusation of improper political pressure by one of the president's party MP, which shocked Ukraine last week, has sent a lot of shockwaves through the political circles, both in Ukraine and abroad. What is your take on that?
If you look to last year at all, we've just recall a lot of similar events, like accusations, declarations, resignations with some ministers, and so on. But this year, it was really the first event of this range. And because of turbulent situation in the political sphere at all, of course, it is linked to high personalities like president, like prime minister, and to the destiny of this government and this parliament at all. So we just have make a conclusion that nothing new. It's just declaration and accusation, but as before,
all the previous resignations, all the previous resignations of Ukraine's ministers, they did not have such an effect as this one had.
Probably because of the moment. Again, in December, we just can recall the report of Prime Minister Arsenij Yatsenyuk in Verkhovna Rada. And a lot of persons in political spheres just expect that the following step will be resignation of this cabinet of ministers. But now we have a temporary period of stability in government, relative stability, and now we have a new destabilizing factor, like resignation of Mr. Abromavicius. Because of that and because of the future on the 16th of February, a new report of this government in Verkhovna Rada, we expect that it may have a more serious consequences.
By more serious consequences, are you referring to the vote of no confidence?
It may be, and it may follow with the dismissal of this parliament and the new elections.
And this is all happening because of the statement of the minister's resignation, or so? What are the preconditions for the resignation for the dismissal of the parliament?
Yeah, the problem is that this government, this cabinet of ministers, have a lack of support of this parliamentary coalition. In fact, we have no acting parliamentary coalition. We have a group of factions that are formally together, but in fact, the part of them demands the resignation of this cabinet. The part of them personally don't see Arsenij Yatsenyuk as a new prime minister and would like to see themselves there on those positions. And at all, we have a very serious, I can't say political, but parliamentary crisis now. And the main feature of this is a lack of proper parliamentary support to governmental initiatives.
Well, when you are saying that you see the parliamentary crisis, isn't it also a government crisis? Because you just said that the parliament might dismiss the government, then the parliament might be dismissed. Might dismiss itself. So what happens?
Yes.
So
here we have a link of possible events. If we have a dismissal of this government, we just have, according to the constitution, the demand for shaping a new coalition and a new government. But in a way, like some parliamentary factions see a future government, it may be impossible to form any coalition in those Verkhovna Rada. And then we have a calculation of time for president to dissolve this parliament and to appoint a new early parliamentary elections, if we won't have a coalition in the proper time.
So, in your opinion, if the parliament dismisses the government, and by the way, what are the chances that this happens?
You know, I just can say that in my mind it's 50-50. Then one option that this government will be reshaped without resignation, that only some persons will be changed there, and Arsenij Yatsenyuk still remains the prime minister. But another option is complete dismissal, resignation of this government, and with the following event that I told before.
Mr. Yakymenko, what kind of message does that send both to Ukrainians and to Ukraine's partners abroad, that Ukraine cannot have a long-lasting parliament, Ukraine cannot have a long-lasting government?
For Ukraine, it's very serious and very complicated situations that may appear if the things will happen like I told before. Because, in fact, we won't have for half a month completely ineffective governmental system.
Half a year?
Half a year, 6 months, yeah. We won't have a parliament at all because we will have an electoral campaign. Then we won't have a full-strength government. And in fact, the reforms can stop under these conditions. And the second, that Ukraine can be able to fulfill commitments according to agreements with international financial institutions. It also will cause a serious problem for Ukraine. So what is need for this moment? It's just find some solution of this problem, that not to reshape drastically all the governmental institutions.
In your opinion, what could be that solution? A lot of people are saying that they would like to see Mr. Saakashvili as the prime minister. Do you think this is a viable option?
I can say that a lot of people can support Mr. Saakashvili because I think it
obviously the presidential fraction will support him because he's close to the president.
Theoretically, it may happen, but on the other side, we have a constitutional model when the biggest parliamentary or just coalition in Verkhovna Rada will propose to the president the nominee for the position of prime minister. And if we don't have any coalition, so respectively, we don't have any person who will be appointed. Theoretically, we can think about Mr. Saakashvili or Ms. Yarescu in this position or some other politician, but I think on the present condition it's really impossible for the present moment.
So, Mr. Yakymenko, if not talking about the dismissal of the parliament and dismissal of the government, what is the way out of this crisis?
The way out is to continue a conversation between the coalitional factions. I know that today they will proceed with that. Tomorrow there were no results and no compromise. And just to look into this compromise around, first of all, around the policy of the new government and around the steps that this government, together with parliament, will perform in order to perform reforms in Ukraine. It's a main problem, because lots of our politicians and parliamentary factions are speaking about personalities, political leaders. They are ruled by their sympathies and antipathies, but not speak about the programs, concrete steps that to be done in order to proceed with reforms at all.
Mr. Yakymenko, if you allow to go back to my question, what does this crisis, what kind of message this crisis sends to Ukraine's international partners?
The message is that the situation in Ukraine is very complicated in different aspects. First of all, we have not mature enough political system. We have not institutionalized political parties. We have a serious lack of responsible politicians. And we have serious challenges, both military, political, economical, and so on and so forth. And under these conditions, I think that the role of international community influence to Ukraine, to Ukrainian politics, is very important, because it may be the most important factors that stabilize this political situation. Because I'm afraid that our internal possibilities are exhausted already.
Well, looks like a lot of serious problems with Ukraine's politicians. Mr. Yakymenko, many thanks for joining us today. We were discussing the political fallout of the Ukraine's economy minister's resignation with political analyst Mr. Yuriy Yakymenko. I'm Vladimir Solhub. Thank you for watching Viewpoint.